My dear brothers and sisters, Fajr has just ended. The masjid feels still, not empty, just calm. Some people remain seated. No rush to leave. The Quran is opened softly. Pages turn softly. Then a familiar sound fills the space. A surah many hearts know well. Surah Ya-Sin. Voices are low. The pace is gentle. People recite with hope, not noise. With sincerity, not show. Many believe something in that moment. If I recite this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect me. If I recite this, my rizq will open. If I recite this, hardship will stay away. They are not mocking the deen. They are not rebelling. They are holding on to Iman in an uncertain world. Some recite because life feels heavy. Bills are piling up. Doors keep closing. Dua feels unanswered. Others recite because fear has settled in. Fear of sickness, fear of loss, fear of the future. So they hold on to what they were taught. Because this practice did not start with them. It came from parents, from grandparents, from voices they trusted. An elder once said, never leave Surah Ya-Sin after Fajr. An imam once advised, make it a habit, barakah will come. Over time, advice became routine. Routine became expectation. And expectation slowly felt like obligation. And this is where the heart must pause. Because sincerity alone does not define worship. And love alone does not turn habit into guidance. The masjid lights are still dim. The sky outside is still soft. And inside this calm moment, a quiet assumption rests. If everyone does it, it must be right. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us gently in the Quran, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And if you obey most of those on the earth, they will lead you away from the path of Allah. Surah Al-An'am 116. This reminder is not here to accuse, not to shame parents or elders, and not to pull the Quran from your hands. It is here to ask one soft question, a question many hearts hesitate to ask. Not loudly, not angrily, just honestly. Is this from the Quran and the Sunnah? Or is it something we inherited and never examined? That question may feel uncomfortable, but real Iman is not afraid of truth. And loving the Quran means loving it correctly. The masjid remains quiet, but the heart is now awake. And this is only the beginning. My dear brothers and sisters, let us be very clear from the beginning. The people who recite are not mocking Islam. They are not playing with worship. They are sincere. They are afraid. They are hopeful. Some are holding on to the Quran because life feels unstable. Some are scared of what tomorrow may bring. Some just want safety in a world that feels unsafe. And Islam does not dismiss sincerity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is in the heart. He knows who is struggling. He knows who is trying. But sincerity alone was never enough in Islam. Because worship is not built on feeling. It is built on guidance. You can be sincere and still be mistaken. You can mean well and still be wrong. And this is not an insult. It is a reality. Allah taught us to protect us. Islam is not against habits, but worship is not habit. Worship is submission, and submission must follow what Allah revealed. This is why Islam always joins two things together: intention and evidence, heart and guidance, love and obedience. Without evidence, sincerity can turn into guesswork, and guesswork in worship slowly turns into something dangerous. Because over time, people stop asking why. They only say, this is how we've always done it. And that is where fear enters. not fear of Allah. But fear of questioning, people hesitate to ask because the question feels heavy. What if I've been wrong for years? What if my parents were wrong? What if something I love is not what Allah asked from me? So many choose silence, not because they are arrogant, but because they are scared. But Islam was never afraid of questions. The Quran itself asks questions to awaken the heart. And the companions ask questions to learn, not to rebel. The danger is not asking. The danger is never asking. That is why Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave us a clear rule, a rule meant to protect worship from confusion. He said, in meaning, whoever introduces into this matter of ours what is not from it, it is rejected. This hadith is not harsh. It is not meant to shame. It is a shield. It protects worship from becoming culture. It protects the Quran from exaggerated promises. It protects sincere people from exhausting themselves in practices Allah never required, because once worship becomes inherited habit, people feel guilty for stopping, even when there is no proof to continue. And once guilt enters worship, peace leaves. Islam never wanted you anxious in worship. It wanted you confident, calm, certain. This is why correctness matters. Not because Allah is strict, but because Allah is merciful. He does not want you standing before Him one day saying, "Oh Allah, I tried so hard," and hearing, "But did you follow what I revealed?" This is not about attacking people. And it is not about removing the Quran from our lives. It is about loving the Quran properly and following the path shown by the messenger who lived it. Once you understand this, something changes. The heart feels lighter. Worship feels safer. And fear begins to fade because truth does not burden the believer. It frees them. And this understanding prepares us for the next step. If sincerity alone is not enough, then what is the correct way to approach worship? That is what we must now look at carefully. My dear brothers and sisters, once we understand that sincerity alone is not enough, the next question becomes very important. And it is a question Islam itself teaches us to ask. Not emotionally, not angrily, but methodically. Is this from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? Or is this something that slowly came from culture? Islam was never built on crowds. It was built on revelation, not on what feels popular, not on what everyone happens to be doing, because crowds change, cultures shift, but revelation stays firm. So when it comes to worship, Islam gives us a clear method, a safe method, a protected method. We ask three simple questions. First, did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ do this himself? Not once, not sometimes, but as an act of worship tied to reward, because he was the most eager to worship Allah, the most fearful of displeasing Him, the most knowledgeable of what brings us closer to Him. If something brought guaranteed protection, guaranteed risk, or guaranteed barakah, would he not have done it first? Second question, did the Sahaba do this? The companions lived with the Prophet. They saw his worship day and night. They followed him with love and precision. They faced poverty worse than ours, fear greater than ours, loss deeper than ours. If a daily practice after Fajr carried such promised outcomes, they would have held on to it tightly, and they would have passed it down clearly. Third question, did the best generations understand it this way? Because Islam was not left to guesswork. It was carried by people who learned directly, then taught carefully, then preserved faithfully. Now, here is something important to understand. Silence is not approval in worship. Just because something existed later does not mean it was accepted earlier. And just because something spread widely does not mean it came from the Sunnah. This is why worship needs proof. Not opinions, not habits, not emotional comfort. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this principle very clear in the Quran. وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. And whatever the messenger gives you, take it. Surah Al-Hashr 7. Notice what Allah did not say. He did not say, whatever your culture gives you, take it. Or, whatever becomes common, accept it. He tied obedience directly to the messenger. Because the Sunnah explains the Quran. It shows us how to pray, how to remember Allah, how to worship correctly. Without the Sunnah, worship becomes imagination. Everyone builds their own version of closeness, and that is dangerous. Not because people are evil, but because worship is precise. Think of it like medicine. A sincere person may take the wrong dose. Their intention is good, but the result can still harm them. Islam does not want you harmed. It wants you protected. That is why scholars never asked, is this popular? They asked, is this proven? And when something was not proven, they did not attack people. They simply did not make it worship. This distinction matters because love for the Quran is always good. But attaching promises to specific times, numbers, or ritual without evidence turns love into obligation. An obligation without proof is not worship. It is pressure. Once you learn this method, clarity begins to enter the heart. You no longer feel guilty for asking. You no longer feel afraid of learning. You no longer follow blindly. You follow consciously, calmly, safely. And now, with this foundation clear, we are ready to address something important. If worship is not crowd-based and not culture-based, then what is the correct balance between love, effort, and guidance? That is what we will explore next. My dear brothers and sisters, now that the foundation is clear, let us speak calmly and honestly about Surah Ya-Sin itself, without emotion, without accusation, without fear. First, we must say this clearly. Surah Ya-Sin is Quran. It is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And every letter of the Quran carries reward. There is no debate about that. There is no disagreement there. Reciting any part of the Quran is an act of worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. Indeed, this Quran guides to that which is most upright. Surah Al-Isra 9. So let no one misunderstand this reminder. We are not questioning the value of Surah Ya-Sin. We are not lowering its status. We are not discouraging Quran recitation. What we are doing is separating certainty from assumption. Here is what we can say with certainty. There is no authentic Sahih hadith that fixes Surah Ya-Sin as a daily recitation after Fajr. There is no authentic narration that promises guaranteed wealth, protection from poverty, or worldly success, specifically tied to reciting Surah Ya-Sin every morning. This is not an opinion. This is a matter of evidence. And that difference matters because Islam teaches us something important. There is a difference between virtue and fabricated guarantees. Virtue means reward in general. Like every letter of the Quran, like reflection, like closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fabricated guarantees mean specific promises that Allah and His Messenger never gave. When we attach promises that were never revealed, we unintentionally place a burden on a burden Allah never placed. Think about this gently. If Surah Ya-Sin guaranteed wealth, why are millions who recite it still struggling? If it guaranteed protection from hardship, why do sincere reciters still face illness, loss, and fear? This is not mockery. This is mercy. Because when expectations are false, people do not blame the practice. They blame themselves. Or worse, they blame Allah. And Islam never wanted that. Islam never promised a life without hardship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was honest with us from the beginning. Trials are part of faith. Tests are part of life. And the Quran was sent to guide hearts through them, not to function like a charm. Some scholars did mention reciting Surah Ya-Sin for a person who is near death. Why? Not because of guaranteed miracles, not because of fixed rituals, but because Surah Ya-Sin reminds the heart of the hereafter, of accountability, of Allah's mercy, of the reality beyond this world. Even then, it was never made a daily obligation, never tied to Fajr, never linked to wealth. So where did the confusion come from? From love mixed with weak narrations, from habits passed down without verification, from good intentions that were never examined. And Islam does not shame people for that. Islam corrects gently. The beauty of truth is this: it does not attack sincerity. It protects it. When worship is aligned with evidence, the heart rests. There is no pressure, no fear of missing out, no guilt. You recite Quran freely, any surah, any time, day or night. Not because you were told it guarantees something, but because Allah deserves to be remembered. And that kind of worship is lighter on the soul, stronger in faith, and safer in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now that this clarity is in place, one question naturally follows. If not fixed rituals we inherited, then what did the Prophet emphasize after Fajr? What guidance did he actually leave us with? That is where light becomes even clearer. My dear brothers and sisters, this is the part we must approach with the most care, not with anger, not with sarcasm, but with honesty and mercy. False promises are dangerous, not because people are foolish, but because people are sincere. When someone is struggling, they cling to hope wherever they can find it. They are not trying to misuse Islam. They are trying to survive with Iman. But here is where the danger begins. When a practice is tied to a promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never made, and that promise does not come true, something inside the heart quietly breaks. At first, people don't blame the practice. They blame themselves. Maybe my recitation wasn't sincere enough. Maybe I missed a day. Maybe Allah is unhappy with me. And when the hardship continues, a darker thought can appear. Why did Allah not help me? This is the real harm, not the recitation, but what it does to the heart when expectations collapse. Islam never built faith on guaranteed outcome. It built faith on truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never told us that belief would remove hardship. He told us the opposite. He warned us clearly so we would not be shocked by reality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger. Surah Al-Baqarah 155. Notice the honesty here. No illusion, no sugarcoating, no false comfort. This ayah does not weaken Iman. It protects it. Because when hardship comes, the believer says, Allah told me this would happen. But when people are promised things, Allah never promised, and life does what life always does. Faith becomes confused. Some people begin to distance themselves quietly, not loudly, not rebelliously. They still pray. They still recite. But something feels heavy now. Others stop trying altogether, not because